pull up a chair and join us at the Energy Roundtable.
Welcome to Energy Roundtable, where Lisa and I debate, talk about, discuss, unpack the energy news that we care about or read about in the prior week. Lisa, welcome to the Roundtable.
Thank you, Matt. How are you today?
Couldn't be better. And you?
I'm great. No complaints.
Good.
Yep.
Are we going to have physical articles today, or is it all electronic?
I do have some physical and some electronic, but I just happened to print them because I wanted to make some notes.
So
that was old-fashioned that way.
You didn't take scissors to the Toronto Star or anything?
No, not today. These ones are not from the Toronto Star. They're both focused on Toronto, mind you, but
okay.
not from the Toronto Star today.
Well, why don't you start us off?
Okay, sure. So my first article is titled, Canada's largest geo-exchange system is being built hundreds of meters below Toronto. It is from BlogTO. Actually, both of my articles, I think, are from BlogTO. Yes, they are. So this first one is about a astounding scale project, as they refer to it as, which is being built deep below the University of Toronto's St. George campus. It is essentially a geothermal project, and it's part of their ambitious climate plan. And of course, they're highlighting the fact that you'd never know that all this work is taking place based on the work that's taking place above ground. There are 370 wells that are being bored below the center of King's College Circle. And just a couple of interesting facts. The U-shaped pipes that will be inserted into the boreholes will form a closed loop filled with a mixture of glycol and water. It'll be linked to the network of heat pumps serving U of T buildings. And the pipes reach a staggering depth of 250 meters, which is a few meters shy of the TD Canada Trust Tower's height. And if you linked all of the piping end to end, it would span approximately 185 kilometers.
Wow.
Yeah, long enough, they say, to transverse the distance between Toronto and London, Ontario. Okay. So, I mean, I give the article a thumbs up, mainly because, and the article talks a little bit about this, but it's, a lot of people think about geothermal as decarbonizing, new buildings and, being installed in new buildings. But this is obviously more of a historic building that they're looking to decarbonize. So I give it a thumbs up for that. And the other piece that I really like that the article also talks about is that apparently they're planning to color code the pipes, so it'll be easier to understand which ones do what. Uh-huh. And because, of course, they do have an engineering program, their engineering students won't just be reading about GeoExchange. They'll actually be able to, physically see how it works. So I like that because, we've talked about some of the campuses that we've been involved with over the years that have cogen. Same thing. If you can show somebody something and talk about something in real life, it just makes all the difference over just seeing it in a textbook. So I give it a thumbs up.
Yeah, and I love it too. I think it's thumbs up for sure. The news story. I think part of geothermal, often we think you got to go out, right? But to really figure out how to go deep in a congested area of Toronto, right in the heart of Toronto, essentially, is where that campus is. That's very, very impressive, right? And so very, very, very cool. They can fit that in and tie it into existing infrastructure. Your point about it, not being only reserved for new buildings. That's a valid point, right? So yeah. And having no fuel costs going forward for that portion of the heat is very exciting. So great. Moving to a warmer climate. My article is from smartenergydecisions.com, and the title is Bacardi Sets Goal to Lower GHG by 50%. Now, I'm not necessarily a rum guy. I'm more of a whiskey guy, but I like to head to warmer climates, especially in the middle of February here in North America. But Bacardi is putting in a combined heat and power system in Puerto Rico, their distillery in Puerto Rico. So, and that will reduce their GHG emissions by 50%. This goes to show you how contextual energy is, right? So they're getting off of heavy fuel oil, and moving to a much cleaner fuel. Propane, which is, for us in our context, that's surprising that's where they're going to and calling it cleaner. But they're also tying biogas. So I think they will take the waste streams from their rum producing process and make biogas, and then the biogas can run, the CHP, and the CHP, of course, in a distilling application will make both electricity and heat for the distilling process. And so, for Bacardi, their senior vice president, Ned Duggan, says, as a brand and as a company, we're committed to doing the right thing for the planet. I think they are in some ways in those Caribbean countries more attuned to that, right? Like they're a bit more exposed to the realities of climate change and how that impacts things. And so here they are on the front lines doing that. And so, the next time you raise a glass or something with rum in it, it may be made with biogas fueled cogeneration, and that's a good thing. So
that's awesome. Well, I don't drink much rum myself either. It's like once in a blue moon that I'll have rum and Coke, and I obviously haven't had anything in 8-9 months at this point. But a couple of questions. Does the article have, does it say what size the cogen is?
It does not. It's a little bit vague on some of that. It does not talk about the size. No.
Okay. And I wonder, because you said propane and biogas, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So I'm wondering if it's like a rich burn or a lean burn engine or what they're doing there.
Maybe some of our friends who listen to or watch the show can go in the comments and tell us who sold the engine to them.
That's right. We'd like to know. We'd like to know.
Inquiring
cool.
minds like to know.
Well, I give it a thumbs up, obviously, as well. It's great to hear that. I love the fact that there's some biogas part in there as well.
Yes.
We worked, obviously, on a propane project as well at Kirkland Lake Gold, which was then converted over to CNG. But so there's a lot that goes on with that fuel and running that in an engine. But anyways, it's cool. That's awesome.
So let's head back north. You're back in Toronto again with your next article.
I'm back in Toronto with the article is titled "Toronto is getting the largest solar power generating wall in North America." This is actually pretty close in our backyard. Like from a location perspective, the project's going to be taking place. It doesn't say what building it is, but it's an industrial area just north of Rexdale Boulevard in Etobicoke.
Okay. Your former stomping grounds.
That's right, my former stomping grounds. It's a record-breaking wall from a manufacturer by the name of Mitrex. It's expected to generate 90,000 kilowatt hours of energy for the building annually. They suggest it's also slashing its carbon footprint in the process. I'll come back to that in a minute. But what's really cool is apparently, and this project isn't a great example of it because they say that the wall is not really that, I'll call it aesthetically pleasing. Like it's nothing kind of funky or crazy. But the company apparently can manufacture these panels in a variety of kind of color variants and looking to look like stone or different types of finishes that, I think is kind of cool. Because if you think about, whether you're, in a residential area, I've always hated the look of solar panels on roofs. Like it just looks to me very ugly, especially if you've got, a house and then you've got these massive solar panels. It's different than an industrial building. So if they can, get this product to look a lot more like shingles or, just a fancy wall on a building, I think it's great. And apparently the cost is not as astronomical as people would think it would be for this type of a wall. And apparently if the power is manufactured or is supplied through off-grid power generation, it's a payback of about a couple of years. So that's kind of interesting. And they do say, though, that they're in a little bit of an uphill battle, this manufacturer, against well-established building materials that are being traditionally used in new buildings. Just because developers and contractors are often looking to kind of stick with, products and relationships that they know. But apparently some green energy incentives, like the federal funding of $10 billion through the CIB or Canada Infrastructure Bank, towards green power projects are among some of the policy moves that they are hoping will sway the industry to kind of make some decisions to use this type of tech in the future. So I like kind of where it's heading. Like I like the whole aesthetic piece because, again, I've always found solar PV to be really kind of ugly, generally speaking, unless, of course, you're putting it in a big field or on an industrial building. I'm going to pick a little bit at the carbon footprint piece that the article mentions, because it does say, again, just highlighting it, expected to generate 90,000 kilowatt hours of energy for the building annually, slashing its carbon footprint in the process. I'm assuming that they're getting their power from Toronto Hydro, which of course is coming from Hydro One, which, as we all know, currently in the province of Ontario is pretty clean, right? Like with our nuclear generation, this is not talking about, peak power or anything that would require peakers, fired with natural gas. So yes, the power, mix might look different in Ontario in a couple of years from now when some of the nuclear refurbishments take place. But I'm picking on it a little bit because I feel like there's so many people that are really trying to just highlight this carbon reduction piece. And again, we just have to be a little bit wary, like, where is that information coming from? And do you really know what you're talking about when we're talking about carbon reductions? So
if you ascribe to the marginal emissions factor theory or line of thinking, it's not really a theory, it's a line of thinking.
Yeah.
I can see how solar is displacing electricity or gas on the margin. So I kind of, whether or not they're thinking that, clearly about it, I don't know. I agree. It is something that's thrown around a little bit more
too loosely, like
lowercase liberally than perhaps it should be. Which is, why we need the blockchain to provide, certainty around all this stuff. And that's another discussion for another day. Let's talk about a wall. It's Canada that's paying for it and not Mexico. Is that what I read?
Yes.
Sorry.
Correct.
I couldn't go there. So that's at the end of the day, I think it's very exciting when we start to get our built environment to not only be conserving because we are more efficient and we're not wasting energy, but actually converting it. You can't generate energy, it's not generated, but it's converted. But so converting it and harnessing it passively or proactively like this, that's now we're talking some really exciting stuff. So
yeah, and I think about those types of projects that can eventually hopefully put power back on the grid too, and help with that, just like they do in Germany, right? Like, or other places in the world. So
totally, yeah. So going from Toronto to kind of expanding across Canada, my article is Lafarge Canada signs wind PPA. And so the announcement here is that Lafarge Canada has entered into a PPA with our friends at TransAlta Corporation. So they're going to buy 100 gigawatt hours a year of wind power. So it's electricity to their Exshaw cement plant.
Wow.
Yeah. Do you know that facility?
I do know that facility.
Oh, okay.
I know that facility because they were at some point looking at cogen.
Well, sounds like they don't need it anymore. They've got wind. So it's going to provide, well, I shouldn't say that. It will provide 25% of Exshaw's energy demands. My guess is that they say energy. So, I mean, in a cement plant like that, there's a lot of energy on the thermal side. And so, probably it's providing most of the electricity. And what I like about this is, this is a case study of we are at the point in the market where we don't need the subsidies. We don't need, the incentives. This is truly one for-profit company and another for-profit company getting together and making a deal like this work. And it's not the first of its kind. There are many out there. But I thought I would, given it's two Canadian entities, it's a client of ours in TransAlta. I thought I would highlight it because I think it's a cool story and a good example of how we can have these, bi-party, bilateral agreements. My hope is we see it one day in the RNG space and all of this where we get to a more of a private industry driving it free of incentives. So really, really cool story and another good news partnership in the space.
Yeah, and I mean it's we obviously know Lafarge. We've worked with them at several facilities, and interesting to hear how TransAlta is involved in this. And I think they're TransAlta themselves are so forward thinking. I mean, as you mentioned, they're a client of ours, but and we don't deal with them on every technology, of course, that they're working with. But they've got wind, they've got battery storage, they've got. I'm not sure if they're doing the solar PV side of things. Obviously, the cogen and power generation. So it just shows like they're really forward thinking and they're thinking about all the different types of technologies that people can use. And obviously that's going to differ based on people's geographic, regions and places and so on. So no, that's cool. That's great.
And my humblest apologies to the people of Alberta. Exshaw is between Calgary and Banff. So when you make that beautiful drive and you start to enter the mountains on your right-hand side on the north end of the highway, you see the Lafarge facility in Exshaw. It's a colleague of ours. His wife is not a big fan of it, but it's, now I can place it in my head. I've been by there. So very good. And now is the time on our roundtable where we have our face-off. We bring in our content creator, producer extraordinaire, Mark Charbonneau, to officiate our face-off. Mark, welcome to the show.
Hello, can you hear me?
Loud and
I can hear you.
Excellent.
You're sporting your mustache again, by the way, Mark.
Yeah,
eh?
I can't make up my mind. I'm like a chameleon, I tell you. Just keep switching it up, right?
I'm living vicariously through your facial hair, Mark.
Fair enough. So I figured with the Super Bowl approaching,
Right.
you would tackle the topic of football, which is often polarizing. A quick story, I actually played high school football, and my mother was completely against it. But my father was a football player. My father played at Mac, and then actually had a tryout for the CFL. He played for the Stampeders for a little while.
Okay.
Then ended up coming back and becoming a teacher in St. Catharines. So,
Wow.
So my mom was against me playing high school football, although she did in the end allow me to. So it is a polarizing topic. So some parents are like, nope, you will not be able to play, and so I figured we would use that, and then the Super Bowl, of course, this weekend.
Right.
Do you guys have a team you're going for, or no? Do you even? Is it even?
I am not a football fan. I will be honest. I love sports. I don't
Yep.
watch that many. Like, I mean, I'm for our listeners who listen in fairly frequently. Most people know I mountain bike and road cycle, and so I watch the whole World Cup season at mountain biking. That is kind of my thing. That's probably the only sport I watch. Of course, Fallon loves the Raptors, though. Although she's sort of tuned out this year, but most of the time I'm kind of sitting alongside her watching the Raptors games as well. So
Fair enough.
And
Matt?
I grew up in a massive NFL family. Until 2.5 years ago, I was a big Pittsburgh Steelers fan. You know, to the extent that I, for some reason, had a tape measure from. You get all this kinds of paraphernalia. I will watch with friends this weekend. I haven't picked. It's so hard to attach yourself to the two teams, to the Bengals and the Niners. So. As an AFC guy, I probably will pick, AFC North guy, I'll probably cheer for the Bengals.
Yeah. Okay. Fair enough. Same thing. I don't have a team. Actually, I've never had an NFL team. I watch NFL like not avidly, but I've just never had. I guess the Bills would probably be my team of choice because it's so close. But hockey has always been my sport. So
I've almost always watched the halftime show for the Super Bowl. That I've always watched. That's always fun.
One.
And the other piece that's really fun to watch is all the commercials, the U.S. commercials, typically.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah, this halftime show is going to be very interesting. So it's sort of our generation's like pop music for sure.
Who is it?
It's Dr. Dre, Eminem, Kendrick Lamar, Mary J. Blige, and I think that's it. And Snoop Dogg.
Yes, I was going to say.
Yeah.
The Great 10 version of me is going to be very, very excited.
That's what I mean. Yeah, it's gonna be interesting to see. So, anyways, let's. I'll let Lisa call this one heads or tails.
So
Go ahead, Lisa.
what is the debate topic?
Football in general.
Pros and cons.
Pros and cons of football. Yeah.
Right, cool.
So, Lisa, go ahead.
So I'll call heads like I usually do.
Okay, I dropped that one, so I got a spare here. Heads. Okay. Cool. It is heads.
Okay. Oh man, how do I want to take this? Okay, I'm going to take a pro.
All right.
I'll take the pro.
The pros of football. Okay.
Yeah, I'm going to take the pros. Okay, so although I'm not a football fan, I do think that team sports and sports in general are amazing for anybody, regardless of your age. And the more, active you can be, the better it is for your physical and mental health. So huge proponent of that. So that's why I'm taking the pro side. So obviously there's some, typical ones here. Like, obviously it promotes physical fitness. Everybody, I think, knows that. Again, touched on the cardiovascular and mental health benefits of football. And again, I think if I think of myself, I raced motocross from, let me see, when I was 15 to my early 20s, I think. And I still say to this day, it kept me out of trouble. So for kids who, have an outlet like that kind of creative, outlet to kind of turn to, that's sports oriented. I think it's great. I think there's huge life skills to be gained from sports in general, and that can be from sports like mountain biking that you're doing on your own, but also as it relates to team sports with football, teamwork and just leadership and goal setting and kind of being cooperative with your teammates. So there's a huge plus to that. The other piece that some people maybe think about, maybe don't think about with football is the scholarship opportunities. We actually have a family member right now who plays soccer and looks like they might actually be getting a scholarship in Europe. And so not only is he going to be able to play a game that he absolutely loves, he's also great in school. And so the fact that he'll be able to combine those two things, I think, is just fantastic and is just a huge life experience. And I know that there's a big, we'll call it negative, that a lot of people think about with football, which is CTE, which I think stands for, let me make sure I get this right here, chronic traumatic, I'm going to say this wrong, but encephalopathy, something like that. But I don't know how to say it. Maybe Matt knows how to say it.
Encephalopathy?
That's it. That's it. And, I think although there's been a ton of focus on that in football over the years, I think the reality is most people know when they choose a sport, whether it's something like motocross or mountain biking or skydiving or football, there's risks. And so if you're willing to take the risk, then I think, it's your decision and it's completely up to you, and go ahead. Right. So I give it a big thumbs up. It's a good sport.
All right.
Well, last time we were together, I had to argue the pros of pet ownership.
And how's that going, by the way?
And when one hands down, both bunnies are still alive. But in this case, I have fallen on my true side of the opinion. I did say I was a Steelers fan. I fell in love with the Steelers in 1996 when they lost to the Cowboys in the Super Bowl. And up until 2.5 years ago, I was a fan, a big Ben Roethlisberger fan, just retired, great career. But I have walked away from the sport because I can no longer put my eyeballs in support of their ratings, which then drive their revenue. And that's for two primary reasons. One, as we all know, is a very dangerous sport. You talk to anybody who's played it, and they have some kind of lasting injury. And the average, I think, career of an NFL player is like 2.5 or 3.5 years. It's really short. And so many of them don't even make enough to really sustain themselves into their post-career. And the union and the pension support is not great. As much as the current players make a boatload of cash, they don't necessarily support their retirees, and there is no guaranteed contracts. Unlike other sports where there's a guaranteed contract, they don't have that in the NFL. So if you're cut, the money dries up. And so, yes, you can say they went in eyes wide open. That's true. But it is still a very dangerous sport. And the key part, and Lisa brought it up, thank you, Lisa, for teeing it up, is the concussion story. And unfortunately, concussions, lead to a lot of damaging stuff. And it's not unique to football, but it is enhanced in football. And, the mental health issues and the stories of suicide are far too rampant for post-NFL players. And what really drove me to walk away from that and continue to watch the NHL, where there is also head injuries, is one of those two leagues I feel, and this is totally my own opinion, I feel has addressed that and is trying to change the game to address it. And that's the NHL, where I don't know if the NFL is, they may not have the same ability to change it. Fundamentally, the game is, nobody's proposing to switch to flag football, I don't think. But I just feel like they're putting their head in the sand. They're stuffing away money to fight lawsuits and just, kind of push that away and deal with it when it comes in the courts. And so I think that's issue number one, is how dangerous it is, and the head injuries and the knock-on effects. And yes, the NFL players are adults and they understand it, but those decisions to go into football and to kind of, that's made at a very young age, right? And so by then, it's almost too late. You get sucked into the Friday Night Light culture, and it's like, no, this is where I'm going. and it's the cumulative effect of the head injury. So that's number one. Number two, and this one is, some might say this is a bit of a reach, but if you look at the demographics of the players versus the demographics of the head coaches and the owners, I think there is unfortunately some significant bias. Most of the players are African American. Most of the head coaches, look at the Brian Flores story right now. There's a whole story around, claiming racism around that. They have a rule to drive, more hiring of coaches of color, not really working. And many of the owners, not all, but many of the owners are old white dudes. And so I think there's some inherent inequity in that. And so for those two reasons, as Kevin O'Leary would say, for those two reasons, I'm out. And so those are my reasons not to support. I will watch it this Sunday, but I will go because we have new friends who've immigrated from Mexico. He's a big Dallas Cowboys fan, and they've offered Mexican food, and they live around the corner. So I can drink tequila and Mexican beer with them, stumble home, and have some good food. And he wants to watch the game. If it's on, I'll watch it.
Wow. That you went deep there, like long. Yeah. I guess you should say instead of deep.
Did I go long? Sorry.
Yeah, he would not long. That just went to a whole different direction I thought it would. And I think I got to go with Matt on this one. I'm you convinced me. Down with football, I guess.
2 in a row.
Yeah. I was going to say he definitely put up a really good argument. So good on you, Matt. And I was prepared to argue the con side. And for those people that are interested, like, take a look at Wikipedia's page. This whole CTE thing, this head injury thing, is like crazy. Like, I took the pro side because it's like I'm pro sports and team sports and that sort of thing in general. But like, this is ridiculous. Like, former players with CTE confirmed post-mortem. There's like 50 some odd players here. Deceased players suspected of having had CTE. I don't know these names. You guys probably do. Curtis Brown, Jeannie Hickerson, Lawrence Phillips, Jim Ringo. There's another living former players diagnosed with CTE reporting symptoms that are consistent with CTE. There's like maybe 30 some odd. And then this is where it gets crazy. Listen to this. Former players listed as plaintiffs in lawsuits against the NFL for concussion-related injuries received after playing. And the NFL reportedly reached a settlement in 2013 with about 4,500 former players or their estates. This current list contains fewer than half that number that's on my screen. It's crazy. Like, it's a real issue. So
big business, though, right? So they'd rather pay the fines or whatever lawsuits they have and just keep making in billions and billions of dollars. I mean, they're not going to stop lining their own pockets, right? Have you seen the Aaron Hernandez documentary? I'm sure you probably have, Matt.
I haven't. No.
Okay.
Yeah. Is it about that, Mark? Is it about? Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
The Will Smith movie on the same topic is also quite good.
Yeah, that one was good. Yeah.
So cool. Well, I'm glad we're in a much safer industry in the energy world. So thank you both. This is always fun. Hopefully our listeners get a little bit of education and a little bit more entertainment out of our time together. Always fun until we meet again in a couple weeks. Stay safe, skate with your head up, and we'll talk again soon. Thanks, guys.
Thanks, Matt.
Bye, everybody.